Inflation isn't just an accident. Most people think inflation is just bad luck. But for governments, inflation can be a tool, and they know exactly how to use it. Because inflation doesn't just raise prices, it quietly changes who wins and who loses. It rewards certain people, it punishes others. And the craziest part is, it can feel like nobody's fault, even when it's benefiting the system. If you've ever felt like your paycheck stays the same, but everything around you gets more expensive, you've felt the power of inflation. So, today, I'm going to explain why governments quietly love inflation, how it helps them, and why it keeps showing up in history again and again. Stay to the end. Because once you understand this, you'll stop thinking inflation is random and start seeing it as strategy. Let's start with the simplest truth. Inflation is when your money buys less over time. Prices go up, your savings shrink in real value, and regular people feel squeezed. Food costs more. Rent costs more. Gas costs more. Everything feels heavier. Most people see inflation as a disaster, and for everyday life, it often is. But governments don't always see it the same way, because inflation has benefits for people who owe money. And the biggest borrower on earth is the government. Here's the first reason governments like inflation. It shrinks the real value of their debt. When a government borrows money, it promises to pay it back later. But if inflation rises, the money they pay back later is worth less. That means the government can repay old debt with weaker dollars. In simple terms, they borrow in strong money and pay back in weaker money. That's a huge advantage. And it's one of the biggest reasons inflation quietly stays alive. But pattern interrupt. Inflation is like paying back a loan with a smaller version of the same dollar. Now, the second reason, inflation increases tax revenue without raising tax rates. This is sneaky, but it's real. When prices rise, wages often rise slowly too. When wages rise, people can get pushed into higher tax brackets. They pay more taxes even if their lifestyle didn't improve. This is called bracket creep. Also, sales tax collections rise because everything costs more. So the government collects more money automatically. No big announcement, no vote, no debate. Just more revenue flowing in. That's why inflation can feel like a hidden tax, because it is. Now, the third reason. Inflation reduces the real burden of government promises. Governments have huge obligations, social programs, pensions, benefits, public salaries, and when inflation rises, governments can increase payments slowly while the real value stays controlled. Or they can delay increases and save money. Meanwhile, citizens feel the squeeze. So inflation becomes a quiet way to manage obligations. Without saying we're cutting benefits, it's not always done on purpose, but it still works that way. Now, the fourth reason. Inflation encourages spending. When people believe prices will rise tomorrow, they buy today. They don't want to wait. So consumer spending can stay strong, and spending keeps the economy moving. It keeps businesses alive. It keeps jobs stable. And governments like that because economic growth looks good politically. It makes leadership look successful. It reduces unemployment. It calms fear. So moderate inflation can act like a stimulant, pushing people to keep buying, working, and producing. Pattern interrupt. Inflation makes people shop faster because waiting feels expensive. Now, the fifth reason, inflation can lower unemployment in the short run. When inflation rises, businesses can raise prices, and sometimes wages adjust slower. That means labor becomes cheaper in real terms. Companies hire more easily. That can reduce unemployment temporarily. This is one reason leaders sometimes tolerate inflation longer than people expect, because inflation is painful. But unemployment is political danger. High unemployment makes voters angry fast. So governments often choose the option that keeps people working, even if prices hurt. Now here comes the cliffhanger. If inflation helps governments, why do they act like they hate it? Because inflation is a dangerous tool. If it gets too high, people lose trust. And when trust breaks, the whole money system gets shaky. So governments have to balance it like fire. A little fire warms the house. Too much fire burns the house down. That's why officials speak against inflation. While quietly benefiting from the effects of moderate inflation, they want control, not chaos. Now, the sixth reason governments like inflation. It helps asset markets. When inflation rises, central banks may respond with policy changes, but often money creation and liquidity can push asset prices up, especially in earlier stages. Stocks, real estate, land. These can rise, and when asset prices rise, people feel wealthier. They spend more, they vote calmer, and governments like stable public mood. Also, higher asset prices can help the banking system stay strong, because loans are backed by valuable collateral. So inflation and asset inflation can help stabilize the system, even while regular people feel squeezed. Now the seventh reason, inflation hides poor decision-making. This is the darker truth. Inflation can cover up mistakes if the government overspends. Inflation can delay the real pain by making numbers look bigger, budgets look like they're growing. Tax revenue rises, asset values rise. It creates an illusion of strength. But underneath, the purchasing power of citizens is falling. So inflation can act like makeup on an economy. It looks okay on the outside, while people feel worse on the inside. Pattern interrupt. Inflation is the system's way of saying everything is fine, while your grocery bill says, no, it's not. Now let's talk about the cost, because inflation always sends a bill. The people who suffer most are savers, workers on fixed income, and people living paycheck to paycheck. The wealthy can protect themselves through assets. The average person feels the pain through higher living costs, and if inflation stays high too long, it can destroy trust, destroy planning, and destroy the future. People stop saving. They stop investing carefully. They start chasing quick wins, and that creates instability. So what should you do about it? Step 1. Don't hold all your money in cash long term, because cash loses power during inflation. Step 2. Build skills that increase your income, because income growth protects you. Step 3. Avoid toxic debt, because inflation can raise rates and make debt painful. Step 4. Invest consistently in long-term assets when possible, because ownership is protection. Step 5. Keep an emergency fund, because you still need stability. And step 6. Stay calm, because panic makes people make terrible moves. Here's the real lesson. Inflation is not just random bad luck. Sometimes it's caused by supply shocks, wars, and real economic events. But inflation also has a political advantage. It reduces real debt. It boosts tax revenue quietly. It encourages spending. And it helps governments manage big promises without making hard choices immediately. That's why governments quietly tolerate inflation more than regular people think they should. So the next time inflation rises and people say, "This just happened," remember this: inflation is a tool, and when you understand the tool, you stop being confused by the outcome. You start preparing, you start positioning, and you start protecting your buying power like a person who knows the system. If you want more money truth, financial history, and simple wealth lessons that make you smarter, subscribe to Cashfree World and hit like so YouTube pushes this to more people who need it. And comment below what hits you hardest during inflation: groceries, rent, or gas.